Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the live show for the second set of books in our Realm of the Elderlings read along for 2025. Thank you all for joining me. If you're catching the replay, no worries. So, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go over the two things that we were to read in February, which were first the short story of Words Like Coins, and then the second novel in the Farseer trilogy, Royal Assassin. So I'm going to first talk about the short story, and then we'll go into the events. I'll talk about my thoughts on it a little bit, and then we'll go into talking about Royal Assassin. So fair warning for those of you that might be coming into this video where you're like, hey, just coming to see a live show, whatever. If you've not read these books, just be prepared that there are going to be spoilers regarding the Realm of the Elderlings. So if you are okay with that, please feel free to hang out and join in. If you've not read the books, and you want to, I would say maybe wait until you've read them, come back to this video and watch the replay, because the video will be available on my channel. Hi, Hillary! Welcome! So yeah, basically, we're just going to get right on into it. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the short story of Words Like Coins. Oops, sorry. That's my alarm for my meds. I'll take them later. Don't worry. So, Words Like Coins. This is a short story that does not necessarily take place at any point in time in the Realm of the Elderlings. It's kind of one of those stories where it feels like it's just kind of part of the world. It's not like a prequel of any kind, similar to The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. It just kind of feels like it's a story that takes place somewhere in the world of the Elderlings, right? It follows mostly a woman who basically, she and her sister-in-law are at the homestead taking care of things while their husbands are off doing God knows what, basically. And unfortunately, what's going on in the world is that there is this major drought happening. They have one source of water, which is a well, but that well is starting to be kind of looked at by some rats that are infiltrating and eating away a lot of the food supply that these two have, all these things. And the sister-in-law is now pregnant and very likely going to be giving birth at any time. So essentially what we've got going on is that the main character is a hedge witch in training, or at least was at some point. So what that means is that in this world there are hedge witches, basically people who are able to access different realms, they're able to do different things, they do different kinds of spells, things like that. Now, the main character was initially a hedge witch in training, so she was being trained under an actual hedge witch, but due to life circumstances, the training ended up stopping, and so she was never really able to fully encompass themselves in the training. Now, what happens is that one day, the main character goes out to get water at the well and finds what looks to be dying Pexie, or kind of like a rat-looking fairy almost of some kind, and this Pexie is also extremely pregnant. So what happens is the Pexie's begging for water, all these things. The character doesn't really know much about them, so she offers the Pexie water. And in so doing that, the Pexie is now bound to our main character, which basically means that this Pexie for life is going to do things that the main character wants, whatever it is. But she's warned to spend her words like coins. Meaning, as we learn through the story, words are very important, especially when it comes to Pexies. Pexies are very literal creatures. They will take whatever it is you say in a literal sense. So, for instance, there are instances where Pexies are told to go away. Never said specifically where, they're just told to go away, and Pexies will die because they're just traversing away and away and away with no end of stopping, no sign of stopping. So the main character is told to spend her words like coins, meaning that basically they have to be very careful of what they say, have to be very careful of how they dictate what these Pexies do. I know, the Pexies looked really cool. They were almost these, little fairy rats, which I was it was interesting because then what happens is the Pexies go after the rats. So I was kind of jarred by that a little bit. But anyway, what happens is that now that the Pexy is bound to our main character, what happens is that the main character decides to use the Pexies to her will. They're trying to figure out how to get rid of the rats that are in their area, and she's like, well, I guess the only thing you really can do for me is get rid of the rats. And so the Pexies basically go after the rats. Meanwhile, all that this is happening, the sister-in-law hates everything to do with Pexies. She has a bad experience with Pexies, has a really traumatic experience with them, and so tells the sister, the main character, do not get yourself bound to a Pexy. Do not allow them to be bound to you. You know, she's saying all these things, basically making it so that she expresses that they're evil, that they're bad. But the Pexy that we meet in the story is like everything opposite of what the sister-in-law is telling us. So this is also a story where it's like, you know, don't judge an entire group of people based on one bad experience, right? You know, I feel like that's a pretty understandable, like, message that we can take even today, right? So really the whole story then becomes, over the course of time, the Pexy is pregnant, and then the sister-in-law is pregnant, and eventually what happens is the sister starts going into labor, and the sister-in-law, though, doesn't want to go into labor until her husband gets back, and so she's like, we've got to keep this baby in somehow, and so the hedge witch in training, our main character, decides to make basically like a it's like basically like what I thought of as like a dream catcher of sorts, you know, a very similar kind of style. There's like twigs that make a circle. I'm trying to think of the what they call it. Like there's a particular witchy thing that's like in real life what we do, and I cannot remember what the name of it is. But like you basically take like sticks and gems and twine and all these things, and you put it all together, and it makes kind of a charm. And so what happens, though, is the Pexy comes in and is trying to tell the main character, listen, you made the charm wrong. You kept us out, but you also ended up keeping the baby inside her. Like, the baby needs to come out. They're gonna die. The baby's gonna die. The sister-in-law's gonna die. You fucked it up, basically. You gotta fix it. You gotta let me help you fix it. Because apparently the Pexy is also a hedge witch. Pexies can be hedge witches, which is a really cool thing to see. So essentially then what happens is the Pexy ends up helps deliver the baby. They basically perform a cesarean section of sorts and get the baby out, and the baby is healthy, the mom's healthy, everything's fine. And once again, we learn the idea, spend your words like coins. And if you're gonna do something in a hedge witch format, if you're gonna do any kind of magic, make sure you do it right the first time and you know what you're freaking doing. Don't half-ass something just because you think it's gonna work. Do it the best of your ability, and if it doesn't work, then you fucked something up and you need to go back and figure it out. Otherwise, you're gonna screw everything else up. So, basically that's what I got from the story. Now, in terms of the overall world, hi Kiana, welcome. In terms of what I feel like the short story involves in the overall world, I do feel like this was pretty much like just another little, you know, a little aside, a little short story that would help to explain, you know, some of the hedge witch things and some of the things with Pexies, but there is a little bit of hedge witchiness brought into the story with Royal Assassin, so I feel like the story too, and the reason why a lot of people put this before book 2 of the Farseer trilogy, is because there is mention of hedge witches in Royal Assassin, and so they kind of want to introduce you to the idea of what a hedge witch can do, and especially the Pexies and how it's really important to use them to your advantage, but be very careful of how you speak to them. I kind of equated the Pexies to like a genie of sorts, because you know how with genies you also have to be really, really careful of how you phrase your wishes? Excuse me. Because like they will take that and run with it, like as literal or, you know, as, you know, far off from what exactly you wanted as possible. I felt like the Pexies were kind of like that, but it wasn't necessarily something they could help. It was just the way that their magic worked and the way that they did things. So I found it to be not necessarily the most necessary of things to have read, but it was really cool for a short story to be in the way that it was, like, involved in the story and kind of help, again, like, introduce the idea of the hedge witch into the world, because We learned about, the idea of the wit and the skill involved with the Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. We got to learn a little bit about that, which helped introduce a lot of the stuff going on into the book of Assassin's Apprentice. So now we get a short story that kind of introduces another magical aspect in this world, which is the Hedge Witch, and a little bit about Pixies, which will probably end up at some other point in the books too. But then getting into Royal Assassin, we learn a little bit more about Hedge Witches with some characters that we meet. So my overall rating for Words Like Coins, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so much fun to read. It was so cool. The imagery of the ebook that I specifically had was really cool to see some of the art that was done with it. And it was a very fast read. It was very fun. I didn't find any issues with it. I feel like I learned quite a bit about the Pixies and the Hedge Witches, and I liked the way that the story was told. I think Robin Hobb is a very gifted author, and I love to see that there is not only long-form novels that are, fun to read by them, but they can also write more short form content, and it's very enjoyable as well without feeling like it's too short or their long form novels feeling like it's too long kind of thing. Kids won't let me nap, so I'll dive in and listen to an audiobook. No worries. I don't know if I'll be doing sprints tonight necessarily. I'm going to basically, I think, just go over these books and then call it a night because it's been a long day. The hubby and I had a really nice day today, going out and stuff, and I want to also go read on my own because I've yet to read today, but I'm not really feeling up to doing sprints tonight. So, but we'll go over all that in just a minute. Hi, Cherie! Hunkering down with Oathbound and coloring, waiting for Storm to come here through here in Atlanta. Yeah, we had a storm last night that passed by up here in Michigan, and the weather said it was possible to have another storm like late in the night, early morning tomorrow, but it's only rained a little bit here again, so we'll see. But yeah, no worries. So I'll do I know I'm going to be doing sprints. That's not true. I was going to do sprints Monday, but I forgot that I had a coffee date with a friend of mine on Monday after work. So I can't do sprints Monday, but I will be doing sprints on Wednesday. Wednesday, starting at 2:30, I will be doing because I have early release from work. So I'll be doing sprints then. But you're free to come hang out with us while, we talk about these books. There's just going to be some spoilery content for the Realm of the Elderlings if you are interested in reading them. Just be forewarned. Okay, so now let me get my notes so that I can get into Royal Assassin because there is a lot to go over with this one. Like, a lot. It's crazy. Okay, I also need to adjust my stuff so I can see my chat. Can I see my chat? Can I see it? Ay. I have to figure this out because I've never done this where my chat is gone. Alright, let me see. Okay, so there's that. I don't want that. I want this. Alright, this is going to be interesting. Am I going to see it? I don't know. Hold please while I figure this out, because this is a bit of a problem that I did not anticipate. That was not what I wanted. Sorry guys. Whoops. Alright, you know what? It's fine. Oh my gosh, now it's all the way down here. What in the world? Gabrielle, what are you doing? Losing my mind. That's what we're doing. Oh gosh, now I can't see this. Didn't read your title. I just saw you were live and assumed it was sprints. No worries. It's alright. It's alright. Everything's okay. Alright, let me see if that'll... Nope, that didn't work either. Well, crap. How am I gonna do this? Maybe if I do this. And then do a dish. There we go. That'll work. Alright, here we go. So, going into Royal Assassin. Alright. So the end of Assassin's Apprentice, we see that Fitz has gone off on their first treacherous foray as an assassin, but unfortunately gets poisoned by Prince Regal, his uncle, because Regal is looking to take over the entire kingdom. And essentially what we learn is that the beginning of the story going into Royal Assassin, we pick right off basically from where we left off. Fitz is super weak. He is unable to really, function. He's now prone to these unpredictable seizures. He's extremely weak. He can barely move. And he basically vows at the very beginning of this book to never return to Buckkeep and King Shrewd. He's like, I'm done. I give up. Fuck this shit. I did not expect to get poisoned myself. I thought I was going to go off and kill people and be fine and happy and dandy and be able to return as a hero, but my uncle apparently wants to kill me. So, fuck this shit, I'm out. And what happens, though, is that he receives a vision of a young woman that we meet in the first book, Molly, who he is kind of secretly in love with. He has been since he was a child when he met her. And he has this vision of her fending off an attack by the Red Ship Raiders, who he's been basically helping fight against since the first book. The Red Ship Raiders have been these people that have been essentially killing people and then making them into zombies of some sort. And so then he, upon having this vision, goes, well, shit, I gotta go save the woman I love. I'm gonna go return to the court of the Six Duchies and go back to Buckkeep, even though I didn't want to. Because things for love, I guess. So, unfortunately, when he returns to Buckkeep, he is then immediately thrown in the middle of all of the things that are going on with the royal family. He does find out that Molly is alive and safe, but after her father dies, who was this awful drunken abuser, after he dies, she is basically left super poor. She's left with a lot of debt on her head, and she's basically forced into service to become a lady's maid at the keep. So she's safe, but she's working her ass off. She is not doing super hot considering everything. Okay? Apologies, I must blow my nose. So upon seeing her for the first time in a long time, to the point where Molly at first doesn't recognize him, Fitz is like, I'm here to save you, my love. I want to protect you and all these things. And she's like, yeah, I've been in love with you too since I was a kid. Let's do this. But that's very short-lived, because when Fitz basically approaches King Shrewd to ask permission to marry Molly, the king tells him, hell to the no. You made a pledge to me to not end up married, have anything. If you're going to marry anyone, you're going to marry this daughter of this duke that there was this whole scene where she was flirting with him, and she's like, he basically goes, you're going to go marry this girl because she's the daughter of a duke. She's more important. This Molly girl, she's poor. She's a maid. What do you want with her, basically? It was just a lot of nonsense. Let's be real. Nonsense. But essentially, he tells him no. So Fitz and Molly are basically having to have their relationship is secret because not only of Shrewd's command, but it's to also keep Molly safe from Fitz's enemies, like Regal. Wasn't able to reread this one, but this is jogging my memory. This one was so crazy. Yeah. So now let's get into the politics going in with the world. So Fitz is extremely vulnerable now to all of these enemies that are in court. The king-in-waiting Verity is consumed by this need to protect the duchies from the red ships. which he enlists Fitz to really help him a lot with that. He teaches Fitz how to use the skill, and they basically link up to where Fitz can see what Verity sees, Verity can see what Fitz sees, and they end up using the skill to stave off any of the Raider ships from attacking. But the problem is that it's not strong enough. It fails really badly at one point. Well, no, that doesn't fail. What fails is Verity's relationship with his new queen. The relationship between the two of them is not really there. It's very much kind of like living with a ghost of some kind. There's just not a lot going on there. Fitz tries to like kind of rekindle the romance and stuff like that, and promote levity within the relationship, but it's very, very hard going. It's like pulling teeth because Verity is so focused on his goal of protecting the kingdom because he is going to be the next king. That's his whole thing. But while all this is happening, King Shrewd is suffering from this really weird, mysterious wasting disease, and he can only survive the pain with these mind-clouding drugs, and it leaves him practically incapacitated for a lot of the book, to the point where I feel like Verity should have just taken over at that point, but that's just my opinion. Now, there are, at this point, with the Red Ship Raiders coming in, a lot of these forged ones who are basically these soulless, zombie-like murderers created by the Raiders, the people that we fought in the first book. They're starting to converge on the keep. They're coming in. They're like closing it in. So Verity ends up pulling in Fitz again to become this unseen assassin. He's commanding him to go hunt down the Forged outside of the keep. And one of my favorite things in this one is that we get a new animal companion. We get a new animal companion that Fitz is like fighting so hard not to love. And it's another little wolf that they call Cub for a little while, but they actually get a name. And I'm trying to remember what the name is. Night Eyes. Night Eyes. Oh my god, I love Night Eyes so much. Night Eyes is very much like, especially as he grows up, that character that kind of just softens the heart of Fitz and gets him to remember, like, he is a wolf. At his core, he is a wolf. He is a creature. He is someone that is meant to kill. He is meant to protect. He is meant to, preserve the pack. The pack is the most important thing to him. And Fitz learns so much through Night Eyes, and I just love it so much. But the problem is, he's not supposed to be bonded to this animal because when Burrich first was working with him in the first book, he's like, you will never bond to an animal because the wit is forbidden. It's not something that you are able to use because you will basically be killed if anyone finds out that you are using the wit. And this is the magic power of connecting with the animals and things like that, the Farseer line was inundated with, that we learned about in the prequel story. I know, my heart, I just loved Night Eyes so much. But with all of this happening, you also then have Prince Regal, who is still trying to worm his way through everything in the politics, okay? So they end up coming very close at one point to finding out that Fitz is witted. And Fitz has to learn basically through this to like shield up his abilities. Because if they find out that he is witted, they would kill him. They've done this for generations by this point, of killing those that seem to have the wit. And because of all these things that Verity is asking Fitz to do, and trying to protect himself and protect Molly, he finds to have very little time for Molly, and at one point, toward the end, she tells him that she's leaving for the sake of another, and Fitz then, in an attempt at basically keeping her, reveals the biggest thing he's held back from her by telling her he's an assassin. And instead of understanding and loving him regardless, she's like, what? What do you mean? You are an assassin. That is like the worst thing you could be. You are nothing better than what my father was, yada, yada, yada. She breaks his heart. Now, here, okay, we're going to pause there for a second. If you've read the book, you know there's relations that goes on between Fitz and Molly. And birth control's not necessarily a thing in this world. I think Molly's pregnant. And pregnant with Fitz's kid. That might be who she was trying to protect. And my thought is more so that she's not repulsed by the fact that he's an assassin, but the fact that how much that puts her and the possible baby in danger. And so her rejection is more of like, I'm protecting me and my kid because I don't want there to be an incident where either you die or you kill somebody and it comes back on me and my kid. That's just my theory, okay? Don't spoil it for me if you've read it before, but that's my theory going into book 3, that that's the possibility, that we're going to find out Fitz has a kid. Okay, so Fitz is heartbroken over this whole thing with Molly, right? Despite that, he bucks up and he decides to rally behind King Shrewd and the kingdom. There are a lot of things out there that are more important than his silly little heartbreak, according to him. You know, you've got the Raiders coming in, you got the Forged Ones, you've got Regal fucking things up left, right, and center. You know, all these things. Verity at one point decides to leave Buckkeep to try to get help from this legendary group called the Elderlings. A lot of people see it as a fool's errand because it basically allows Regal to kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. And kind of gives him the ability, because if the king is getting sicker and sicker and sicker, Regal's kind of building power. And if Verity's gone, Regal's gonna play. And nobody knows whether or not Verity's still alive at this point, because this fool's errand idea also could very possibly get him killed. Can't remember if Molly knows he's witted. I was also weirded out that Night Eyes can see all those relations. I know, it was very awkward. He doesn't reveal that he's witted to her in this one. I believe he only reveals that he's an assassin. Just that he's an assassin. I don't think he gets the ability to tell her he's witted. But that may be something that comes up later. I wouldn't be surprised. So, the king's dying, all this stuff. Fitz and Verity's queen, the queen named, well, what is her name? I had it right here. Oh yeah, they call her the New Mountain Queen. The two of them end up having to deal with a raider attack on one of the coasts. And the Mountain Queen is like a badass. She is powerful. And she goes into battle fully being pregnant with Verity's kid. Who runs the world? Who runs the world? Seriously, because this queen, ooh, she's a badass. I mean, she put herself and her kid both in danger, but she survived. She kicked a bunch of Forged Souls' asses, handed them right back to the Raiders, and said, that's it, I'm gonna go take a nap. I mean, like, one of the coolest scenes I've ever read was her just killing left, right, center, slashing heads, taking names, breaking kneecaps. Like, holy hell, that was fun. Okay, so then, while all that's happening, while this big battle's happening, Regal starts making moves. He ends up finding out that, he supposedly finds out that his brother's dead. And the king basically makes himself king in waiting. He's like, my brother's off on this errand that's going to likely kill him. I'm just going to make myself king in waiting. I'm just going to take the crown right now because my dad's dying. I don't give a shit that my dad's dying. I just want to be king. So, what happens though is Fitz is able to find out that Verity's actually alive. He is alive. And what happens though is that, if he reveals that Verity's actually alive, Regal's gonna, just, especially if he figures out how Fitz knows, not good. Not a good choice. But there is an attempt also then made on Verity's queen, where someone tries to force her into a miscarriage, because if she gives birth to their kid, that kid is going to basically take out Regal's spot, and Regal doesn't want that, so he tries to figure out how to send her into a miscarriage. And essentially, Fitz teams up with his mentors, Shade and Burrich, who do make appearances in this book, and they have altercations and things. They basically decide to take King Shrewd and Verity's queen, Ketrican, that's her name. I had the note listed later. They basically decide to take Ketrican and King Shrewd and whisk them away somewhere safe, out of Regal's reach. But unfortunately, by the end of the book, King Shrewd dies. And he dies in an attempt to contact Verity. It basically kills him. Using the skill, kills the king. And in that, Fitz does get a glimpse of what exactly had been killing the king, which are two characters that we have seen since the first book. Serene and Justin. They are the two remaining members of Galen's group, basically. The skill master who had been using the skill and tried to harm a bunch of people, including Fitz. Serene and Justin have basically been using their skill to drain away the life of King Shrewd. And once Fitz finds out that happens, he goes a little ragey, kills them both. Kills them both, basically in front of the court. Regal ain't too happy about that. Fitz is then imprisoned, and he's accused of homicide and regicide because they think he possibly killed the king as well. And he's found out of using, possibly, the wit. Regal tries to torture, physically and mentally, Fitz to get him to confess to his crimes. And specifically, he has another one of Galen's former group members, Will, be the one to attack him, torture him. And this is what's really interesting. The thing that I am not necessarily 100% certain what happened, because I got a little lost here and there, okay? So, Night Eyes, throughout his imprisonment, contacts through the wit, Fitz, and is like, the rest of us are all set to go. All you need to do is transfer yourself into my body and we can get out of here, basically. Because Fitz is basically dying at this point. Again. And he ends up joining Night Eyes and supposedly dies. His body is still there, but his mind and everything else is in Night Eyes. And after he's dead, Fitz is then pronounced guilty of all charges. His body's burned by Queen Patience, one of the last people to actually be of support to him. But what's interesting is that Burrich and Shade then exhumed the body of Fitz, and Fitz, who's still in Night Eyes' body, brain, something like that, they coax him back into the body which confused me, because if he was burned, wouldn't he be turned to ash? Yeah, they subtly mentioned it in The Willful Princess. You are 100% right. It all comes back. It all comes together. Yeah, it was, that was the one thing I was a little confused on, though, because unless there's some kind of, like, magic where, you know, the soul comes back and it immediately heals everything about the body, if the body was burned, wouldn't it just be a bunch of piles of ash? Because if we're talking cremation, that's kind of what would happen, right? Am I wrong in that? I don't know. So, that is the entire rundown of Royal Assassin. Okay, so here are my thoughts. First of all, like I said, my theory is that Molly's pregnant. I mean, who else would she be saying that she would be protecting? Who else? I feel like that's a huge thing. And if you don't think she's pregnant, then you gotta tell me, who do you think she's protecting? Yeah. Okay. That's my hope, Hillary, because I would like to know how exactly do they put him back in his body? Doesn't make sense. Okay, so, my overall thoughts. I will say I enjoyed this a little bit less than I did Assassin's Apprentice. Let me see what I rated it on Cawpile. I know it was a 4-star, but I want to give you an exact rating. It was a 7.86 out of 10. So it was a 4-star. And the things that I really... Okay, so the things I really didn't like. Let me run this down for you. Starts right where they left off. I'm not surprised. I feel like that's the way that these books are going to go. They're going to be very sequential. Okay, so 4 stars. My big gripes with it. The wishy-washiness between Molly and Fitz. I hated it. I hated it. I hate wishy-washiness with romantic stories. I'm fine with there being a romance. I'm happy there's a romance with Fitz and Molly. I hated how back and forth they were about everything. Like, for God's sake, just make a decision. Stand your fucking ground, for one. Okay. Secondly, there were, I think, points while in the castle that I just kind of did not really feel like I got the most out of it. I feel like I got, not necessarily a little lost, but I got a little bored at some points while we were at Buckkeep, because it did feel a little repetitive at times of like, okay, we're gonna go do this, we're gonna go do this, and then back to this, and then back to this, and then check on King Verity, and then make sure the Regal's not fucking shit up, and then this, that, and the other, go check out Night Eyes' happenings, and go hunt down these things. Yeah, okay, so in terms of age, I would say that at this point, we're looking at Fitz as like maybe in his mid-20s, early to mid-20s. Because the first book, I think, is when he's, like, 6 to, like, that early to mid-20s. And this, like I said, picks right off of the first book. So we're still in that, like, early to mid-20s. You know? Like, I feel like... I mean, obviously, it's their first relationships, for the most part. Or at least it's Fitz's first relationship. So he's freaking ignorant as hell about how to handle women and anything like that. But still, come on, man. Stand your fucking ground. If you love her, show the fuck up. Simple as that. So, I still think she's pregnant, though. But that's just me. The next thing. Like I said, I feel like I got a little lost here and there. Especially when it came to Verity. When he was gone, I feel like I just was like, okay, it's the same thing over and over again. Beat my head against the wall. You know, I feel like once he left, things just got really boring for a while. And it wasn't until Kettrikin freaking went right into battle that I was like, oh, we're back. The action's back. I'm very happy about this. Let's go. And of course, female author, badass female character. I was going to be really disappointed if we didn't have at least one badass female character in this series written by a female author. Like, come on. But Ketcherkin, badass. Badass. Love her. Love her, love her, love her. And I love how she has her softness too, with like the garden and everything and all that. Like, it was just so, the whole thing with the garden, the rooftop garden, and she was all excited. She's like, oh, maybe Verity, you know, he'll love it, and I can restore it to when he was a child, and I'll make him so happy. And that just broke my heart. I just loved it so much. It was such a sweet moment. So then, fucking Regal. Oh, I already did not like Regal from the first book with his treatment of Fitz. But now, that man can choke. That man can choke on something hard and spiky. I don't like him. I mean, obviously, he's like our big bad. Or kind of a big bad. Because we've also got the Red Ship Raiders, which they're a whole nuisance in and of themselves. But the whole thing with him and Night Eyes, Fitz and Night Eyes, I'm a sucker for animal companions. I'm a sucker. I can't help it. Y'all know how much I love my animals. I love them. Okay, listen. First book. The puppy. When the puppy was taken away and killed in the first book, I cried my eyes out. To know that Fitz has his animal companion in this one makes me so happy. We finally have a companion for our hero, and I love it so much. A brief moment in time where Verity was happy was so sweet. I know! I feel so bad for Verity because, like, okay, he's the king in waiting. He has a lot riding on his shoulders, right? He feels like everything is related to him. His dad's dying. You know, he just got into this marriage that he doesn't really know the woman. He doesn't really know anything about her. But he's trying to make things work. But he's got so much on his plate that he can't actually put time to her. I feel bad. Because, like, he's a decent guy. Like, I mean, I know he continues to put Fitz in a position that he doesn't necessarily want to be in. But Verity's, like, not that bad of a guy. Like, he's actually pretty decent. And so it's, like, I feel bad for not just Ketcherkin, but I also feel bad for Verity because I know he wants to be there. I know he would much rather be at Buckkeep dealing with his brother than being off in the middle of nowhere, having to find these supposedly mythical things that may or may not actually help. But I mean, overall, I liked it. It was fine. Like I said, got a little confused at the very end about the logistics of things, but that's just me being picky at that point. But I did really enjoy my time reading this. It wasn't as good as Assassin's Apprentice, in my opinion. It does, I think, suffer a little bit from that second book syndrome. Just mostly with it being kind of repetitive at times, because, like, especially that whole middle chunk where Verity was gone, it's the same thing, like, day in, day out, and then the wishy-washiness between Molly and Fitz was really annoying, but other than that, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Okay, so, I know this is much later in the month than I was planning on doing this, so I apologize, but the only book we are looking to read in the month of March is the final book in the Farseer trilogy, Assassin's Quest. Now, this is not going to be the end of Fitz in its entirety. This is just going to be the end of a storyline with Fitz, because we're going to see Fitz again in the last series we're going to read toward the end of the year, the Fitz and the Fool series. Which, by the way, okay, hold on. One last thing. What the fuck is the point of the Fool? The Fool did nothing in this but aggravate me the entire time. Like, I kind of got the idea of them in Assassin's Apprentice. They were just another nuisance in this one. Like, it was just the most annoying fucking thing. Every time he came up, I'm like, for the love of God, the last time without you was not enough. You were doing nothing. You were not helping. You're not hurting necessarily, in some cases. but you're not helping anything. Go away. Go away. Sometimes I wish he was a Pexy that I could say, go away. Just go. Walk till you die. I'm done with you. Fuck off. You're done. Okay, sorry. I forgot that one thing that I wanted to talk about, and it was about the damn fool. He is a damn fool. Like, he's just an idiot. I don't like him. I don't like him one bit. He's another guy that can go choke on something hard and spiky, in my opinion. Okay, anyway. So, Assassin's Quest. This is our only book to read for the month of March. My plan, and I say plan because I don't know 100% how this is going to happen. It's going to depend, obviously, on how I'm feeling, what's going on. But the plan is to have the live show for this in 2 weeks. Well, 3 weeks, technically, from today, which is April 5th. Saturday, April 5th is the tentative day. My plan is to do it then, but y'all know whatever happens. He becomes one of my favorite characters in the third, I swear. He gets interesting. Okay, he better, because if he doesn't, I'm going to be rioting. Because this man, he is aggravating. Aggravating with a capital aggravating. I can't stand him in this book. I liked him kind of in the first book, but now in the second, If you ain't gonna help, get the fuck out. Let's go. Go away. Alright, so I'm going to share my screen so I can have you guys read the synopsis for the final book in the Farseer trilogy with me, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about what the possible things happening could be. So let me go ahead and share. And I need to adjust my window capture because I know that that's different. Alright, here we go. Okay, so this is the Goodreads page for the synopsis, so let's go ahead and read it. King Shrewd is dead at the hands of his son Regal, as is Fitz, or so his enemies and friends believe. But with the help of his allies and his beast magic, he emerges from the grave deeply scarred in body and soul. The kingdom also teeters toward ruin. Regal has plundered and abandoned the capital, while the rightful heir, Prince Verity, is lost to his mad quest, perhaps to death. Only Verity's return, or the heir his princess carries, can save the Six Duchies. But Fitz will not wait. Driven by loss and bitter memories, he undertakes a quest to kill Regal. The journey casts him into deep waters as he considers wild currents of magic within him, currents that will either drown him or make him something more than he was. So, my theory, obviously, we're not going to see the last of Molly. I think Molly's going to still come in on this one at some point. He's going to find out that Fitz is going to be a daddy. That's my theory. Don't tell me if I'm wrong yet. I'll find out when I read the book. My other theory, I do think Verity is going to come back. I think Verity is going to very heroically, at the very end of the book, when things are about as bleak as they can be, he's going to ride in like Gandalf the White and save all of Rohan. You know? I can see it. I can see it happening. I don't think we're going to rely on the kid, Verity's kid, to being the savior, because, I'm sorry, who's going to wait around 16, 18 years for a kid to take over when the actual reigning person is nothing but a shitbag? Ain't nobody gonna wait. Fitz ain't gonna wait, apparently. So who the hell's going to? But I do think this is gonna be probably one of the saddest books. I know that Fitz and the Fool series, from what I've heard, is really sad. Because Fitz by the time we get to that series, he's much older. I have a feeling this one's going to be pretty gut-wrenching. And apparently if the Fool's going to be a lot more interesting in this one, maybe he'll be tolerable. But he better actually be doing something. Because he did fuck all in the last one. I do hope that... What do I hope? I hope obviously I'm going to like it. Right? I hope it's at least going to be better than book 2 was. I just want Fitz to be happy. I just want him to be happy. To live his life. Not be an assassin. Just live his life. You know? Be a candle maker. That'd be nice. Live out his life with Molly. But my copy that I have, and I have the mass market paperback, which is the similar one that they have on the page, is 757 pages. I think this is the longest book of the three, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at Assassin's Quest again. Or, Royal Assassin, excuse me. Yeah, this is 675. So this is almost 100 pages longer than the last book. Which, the last book was, I think, almost 100 pages longer than the first book. So, this is what we're going to be reading in the month of March. This is the only book we are reading in the month of March. In April, we will go back to reading a, short story novella of sorts, and the first book in the Live Ship Trader series. So, in April, we're starting a brand new series in this world, following a whole new set of characters from what I understand. But if I'm not mistaken, Fitz does make appearances here and there. I could be wrong. Don't tell me. We'll find that out. But I'm excited to see where we end up by the end of this one. I am hoping that Fitz gets somewhat of a happy ending, because I think he deserves it. He's not a cinnamon roll character by any means, but he's an enjoyable one to read about. And I think he does deserve good things, because he's been through a lot. The poor boy is traumatized. He deserves some happiness. All right, let me go ahead and go back to where I was originally. So, with that being said, like I said, the live show for the final book, Assassin's Quest, is tentatively 3 weeks from today on April 5th. I don't know if that's going to stay. I'll let you guys know, obviously, if anything changes with that. But for now, that is the case for this one. And we're going to only talk about Assassin's Quest. It might be a little bit shorter of a live show, depending on how much I have to talk about, things that I need to discuss, things like that. But I do want to thank you guys all for joining me today. If you're catching the replay, let me know. Let me know what your thoughts were. What did you give rating-wise for Royal Assassin? I'll be starting live ships with everyone in April. Woohoo! Yay, Hillary! What did you give Royal Assassin? How did you like it compared to the first book? How did you like Words Like Coins? Did you feel like it was really interesting or was kind of eh? Assassin's Quest is still fresh in my mind. Okay, good. I'm glad. So, yeah, otherwise, thank you guys all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of things hopefully moving and grooving starting in April. So please keep, a lot of good vibes and positivity in your minds and hearts. But also, if you guys aren't aware, I do actually have a Patreon where you can access early access content from me. So videos that get posted a day early over there. You can also access other kinds of posts that I don't normally make on Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. And you get all kinds of other cool stuff. So I do have to adjust my tiers a little bit, because I'm actually going to drop my highest tier and go from there, because I don't really like the way that it's set up right now. But you do have the ability to access my other 2 tiers at this moment, and it would just mean a lot to me if you came and supported me over there. But by no means is it an obligation or anything. It's just if you would like to further support me and what I do. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining me. Again, the live show for the next book is hopefully going to be April 5th, but I will give you guys enough notice if that's not the case. As far as sprints, I do want to mention, Monday there will be no sprints. I am canceling sprints for Monday because I forgot I had to have a coffee date with a friend of mine. And then we will be doing sprints on next Wednesday starting at 2:30 p.m. EST. Give Royal Assassin 4 stars. Nice. Okay, cool. So I'm glad that we're kind of in agreement there. But yeah, so Wednesday will be our next sprints. Still not sure about Friday. It really depends on what my husband and I decide to do, because we're still figuring out whether or not we want to go away for a trip or something on Friday, since Friday will be the first day of my spring break. But not this coming week, but next week, my spring break week, I will be doing sprints every single day from noon to about 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish. So, lots of sprints to be had soon. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night and a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I will see you guys in my next video or stream, whatever it is that you guys come and see. Bye, everyone.